It's me, Chucky. My mommy is the best. Super mom will be nice. She helps mommy get those smiles back, the giggles back, and the sparkle back. You wait for the straw brush. Get ready for that super slippery, that super strong.
Welcome to another exciting episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. It is your go-to resource for parents and want-to-be parents who strive for success without sacrificing connection and well-being. Each episode delivers actionable strategies and inspiring insights to help you build emotional intelligence and resilience for yourself and for your family. Strengthen relationships with yourself, your partner, and your children. Master parenting as an entrepreneur, even while raising young children. Discover life and parenting hacks that simplify your journey. Explore hypnosis and other healing modalities for a deeper transformation. This podcast isn't just about parenting and a fertility journey. It's about creating harmony, wealth, and alignment in every area of life. Let's get started. Robin Stoltman. And today's episode is sponsored by Dr. Melanie Gray, theconfidencecoach.com. And we have Dr. Melanie Gray. She is a PhD RN and she is nationally recognized expert in trauma-informed leadership, burnout prevention, and workplace wellness. And with more than 20 years of experience in healthcare leadership and higher education, Dr. Melanie Gray helps organizations and individuals heal from burnout, build psychological safety, and cultivate cultures of trust, empathy, and resilience. And she is the founder of Melanie Gray Solutions. She teaches leaders and women how to move from reaction to regulation using her signature stop it method to slow down, set boundaries, and lead well for living whole. Her work bridges neuroscience and compassion, offering a trauma-informed roadmap for both professional success and personal healing. Whether she's working with executives, nurses, or women navigating midlife transitions, Dr. Gray's message is clear: helping people heals organizations. Thank you, Dr. Melanie Gray, for being here and helping people lead well, live whole, and thrive with purpose, and especially with our audience today.
Robin, thank you so much for having me today. It's quite the honor. I think that your audience is special, and it is the audience, the group of people that I believe are not recognized enough in our societies. Moms
thank you.
Are a big deal.
Yes, we are. That's why I'm like, they're not given the credit. I've seen so many things lately on Facebook, and you get all the different memes, but it's like, you're just a stay-at-home mom, and it's like, no, you're the referee, you're the coach, you're the judge, the jury, the whole 9 yards. You're the cook, you're everything.
There's an old saying when I was growing up that was, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Those are moms, moms and mom figures. The hand that rocks the cradle, they do rule the world because they're shaping the personalities, they're shaping the individuals that will become leaders, that will be the future. Teachers, police officers, firemen, you name it, they're the future. It's a big deal.
It is. It's a huge deal. And I wanted to ask, like, where did you get started in this? Can you tell us a little bit about your background? What got you here?
Well, I'm a nurse for over 20 years. I have experience in higher education and acute care. I was dealing with leaders in my organizations that were stressed, where many of us are women, so you hear all the stress and burnout. And then COVID happened, and that amplified everyone's stress and burnout. And that led me to spending the last few years focusing on being a subject matter expert around trauma-informed care and stress and burnout.
Well, that helped in your benefit then.
It did, because it allowed me to frame what I was doing anyway, coaching people through their hard times and asking women the question, so are you living the life you want? You're burned out, you're working too many hours, you're missing time with your kids. Is this what you want? Oh, no. Many would say, I want to be with my kids. Then why don't you do that? But what about the money I'm making? There are other ways to make money, and all money's not good money. And at the end of the day, all money's not good money. It's not. And that is at the cost of your personal integrity. Moms often feel that they're in competition or they're lesser than the woman who has a career. And there's no less than. It's a choice we all make. And we should hold our heads high no matter what choice we decide. Your head should be held high that you chose to value your kids. I stepped down from a position that I thought was going to take me on the trajectory of being a really high executive, but then my father had a stroke, and I made the decision to step down and take care of my dad and come back to my career later. And in that time, I learned other skills that could make me an income. I mean, moms have transferable skills. They're really smart and creative and resourceful. You don't need to have a title from someone else. You're a CEO of your own world.
I agree with you because
You're
I
your
was
own
thinking,
CEO.
like, how
You,
creative you got to be. Like, I got 8 kids total. The oldest is 10 years old. The youngest is 4 months, and I'm like,
ooh,
it requires a lot of creativity. Like how you get the team to work together. That's like I tell my kids, I'm like, we're a team, and then I'm like, well, there's no way I could go into corporate like where I want to go and help them lead a team because I'm like, I haven't led a team that size, and I'm like, well, yes, I have. If I can manage it with kids, I can manage any team like at this rate. I'm like, you got to learn how to connect. You got to learn how to get them to stop fighting, which good luck some days. But it's like,
well, and
you
look
deal
at
with
the
that in the
freedom
real
that
world
you
too.
have, right? You can create your own
Yes.
benefit package. You can decide your salary and your income. You don't walk in the fear of, are we going to be acquired by another organization? Am I going to have a new boss? You don't have any of those conflicts.
No.
You might have different ones, but you are in control. And control means a lot. And I'm not, there's no disparaging word that I have for anyone who is in corporate because I spent many years there. But there is a level of uncertainty that exists in having a W-2 job, right? They're good. I mean, we need to serve people. It's good to have the benefits, but there's more uncertainty with all the acquisitions, the changes in the economy. And I believe everybody needs to have a plan B to be able to be at home for some amount of time if the world changes. And so salute to all the moms who are listening who have already figured that out.
And I agree with you so much. Just because I'm just saying, it's like you got to think ahead in this world, like with the AI coming and like all these different things. It's like they're predicting robots and they're predicting like all these things are going to happen. I'm like, the Jetsons are going to happen. It was way back then. You like when I was a kid, it's like the Jetsons was like a good thing. Like that'd be nice. But now it's like this is actually becoming a reality that'll be here. And at the same time, like we can lose ourselves in all of this technology, but then it's like keeping that humanness here. That like that's my word I got. I'm like, I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, we want to keep
You
humanity,
know?
right? It's the
Yes.
moms who are building humanity in their kids. It's any stay-at-home mom who's saying, my kids are the impact that I want to leave in the world. At the end, when I become older and I'm 60, I want to be in relationship with my kids for the next 20 or 30 years. I don't want to be lonely and feeling like I have no purpose after 30 years of career and you're sitting up looking at yourself. I mean, there is a salute to all the moms for seeing themselves as a gift. That's a song, Robin, that I like.
Is it?
I think we should have a song that all the moms would say, I'm a gift, I'm a gift. I thank God, oh yes, I'm a gift. Every mom is a gift. Every mom is a gift. And every woman who's listening should embrace themselves and say they are a gift to themselves. They don't need likes. They don't need followings. They don't need a brand or profile. But what is the brand in your home? How do you see yourself in the mirror? Celebrate you. God made you special. You're a gift.
I didn't know you could sing too. I love your voice. I'm just like,
You're a gift, but they have to see it. You have to believe it. And it's not what others say about you that matters. It's what you say about yourself. You are a leader for yourself. You look in the mirror every day and see you. Whose voice do you believe more than anyone else's? Your own. So believe it, embrace it, celebrate it. People will believe about you what you believe. You tell them what to think. I'm here. I'm a CEO of my own home and my own business, and I am a gift.
I love it. I'm just saying. My kids call me super mom because they're like,
And you
I do
are.
so much. And it's like, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's where my clients even call me super mom because they're like, they don't know how I do what I do. And I'm like, I don't even know how I do what I do. I just know I got to keep moving all the time on things, just to keep it going. But now I'm thinking, well, yeah, because it's like with the team, I'm like, my team is like my brand has been like business and babies, literally, because I'm like, I'm doing both at the same time. And like my thing is that we should be able to do both. I don't want to have to do like, I know it was like the boomer generation where they had to choose between being a mom and a career. And I'm like, I didn't want that. I believe that we should be able to do both if you want to. Because I'm like the stay at home moms. I'm like, I don't like when people say you're just a stay at home. Or like my husband, he's like, well, I stay at home and take care of the kids. And I'm like, that's a good thing. I'm like, you're helping me so I can do this. But I'm like, that's a big part because I've had to do his job a couple times, or his role, I should say. And I'm like, I can do it, but my mind's on, I still have, this or that to do within the business, and it makes it more challenging, at that point. And then we had to add the dog because somebody had to.
Well, you had to add the dog, but we don't.
Yes.
Everyone has to make a choice, Robin, and
Yes.
we should be making these choices with confidence, right? And celebrate the choice that you made. There is this adage, I know you've heard it, that we can have it all. So I'm a believer that is a big lie. No one gets everything. But are you satisfied? Do you choose to be satisfied with your choice and celebrate your choice? Life is not a competition, and happiness is a choice. So embrace it. You don't, but because a person who's making a million or whatever dollars, or has a big title and 1,000 people reporting to them, they're at a loss at some point. They're losing some time in family. They may be losing some time in sleep, time in relationships, time in exercise. Not, there are things that are lost when you gain other things. But it's okay if that is your choice. And for every mom who's listening, you have all that you choose right now. And if you want to build more, then you have the choice to do that and be confident in that when you are ready.
And I would agree with you on that part. And then I'm also saying, like, for like all the choices, because like we're programmed that you gotta have that career, you gotta chase that hustle culture, if I'm gonna say it right, it's tongue twister. And at the same time, it's like you gotta do what works for you. So then how do people find that value where they can value themselves as much as their work? And do many professionals struggle to do that? Or is that just something that's just kept swept under the rug?
Well, everyone that has a professional title does not necessarily feel like they're a professional or that they belong, because imposter syndrome, even in the corporate world, is real. And it is can be just as challenging and lead to the kind of insecurity that a mom might have about not being in the workforce. A woman who has chosen to be at home and not be in the workforce, they have to confidently embrace their choice and not get their value and worth off of social media. That's the spirit of discontent, is that scrolling. You know, that's a spirit of discontent. And if people would get off of it and stop believing those lies and embrace their own truth and celebrate it, they'd be a lot happier, in my opinion.
I no, I hear you there because that's one of the things that can definitely lead to that. Because I've found myself doing that a couple times. I'm like, well, I'm not successful like they are, and I'm like, well, what is my definition of success? I'm like, I'm living it. So I'm like, and I've told people, I'm like, success should have nothing to do with money, because to me, I've never equated the two. I'm like, you can have nothing like for dollars and still be successful. Because I'm like, I'm living proof of that. I'm like, I've got all my kids. They love me. And my thing is, one of the things that has not helped is like you get these parents that their kids are done raised, and then their kids don't come see them. Their kids want nothing to do with them. And it's like, then they've tried to tell me, well, your kids are going to be the exact same way. And I'm like, I don't think mine will be. because I'm raising mine differently. I'm raising mine to be like, hey, you know what? If you don't have to leave home at 18, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But I'm
Hmm.
but I'm helping you as much as I can right now. But I want my kids to be more successful. So I actually wanted to know, as long as we brought up the social media part, would you see like maybe that's one of the things that a lot of these parents that are headed towards burnout might be experiencing is like not just the comparison, but then like I said, when you get those other people that have already raised their kids and then they're like, well,
Hmm.
that my kids don't come by. What's your take on that? Your
Well,
gifts on that?
when children separate from their parents, there's a deeper issue around that, you know. So one of my areas of expertise is trauma-informed care. And what that means is when we see behaviors that we don't understand, rather than judging the person and saying, ugh, wonder what's wrong with them, we consider what may have happened in that person's life to result in that behavior. Because what we know from research is that trauma can pass through at least three generations. How does that happen, you might say? Well, by the beliefs, mindsets that were given to us. For example, if my parents never took me to get physicals and take care of my health and get my teeth cleaned, I wouldn't have the mindset to do that, right? And so that level of neglect I would be passing down to my children if I hadn't learned to do it myself. Fear. If you have My mother and my parents grew up during Jim Crow segregation through a lot of abuse of African Americans. So to some degree, they grew up through all of that. They put a level of sensitivity or restraint within me that could have kind of been a little bit of fear, so that I would live in a certain manner, and not encounter some of the racial injustices and abuse that they did. Now, that made me very defensive when I was younger. I was on the defense all the time because you were not going to treat me a certain way because my mama said, right? And so that if I weren't aware of my trauma and my triggers where I changed, I would pass that on. So when parents are saying to you their kids don't come around, there's a deeper wound, a deeper message in that really would need to be unpacked by a clinical therapist. I coach people through burnout, and in that process, I do often have to refer them to a clinical path, and then they can come back for the coaching later. So to your answer, in anything, people don't always remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. And so what are you making your children feel? There's a reason they're not coming around. I went to a funeral last week of a father who had raised three sons. And those young men all talked about the memories they shared, that how their father was always present, how he came to all of their events, how encouraging he was. So there's a relationship that was established that created the memories and the loyalty that kept them connected. We still have to do that. Parenting is not a noun, it's a verb, it's an action word and an adjective.
Well, I was gonna say it. I'm glad that you brought up all that you did, like the different contexts of different things for the different situations. Because I was thinking, well, I forgot about. Well, because I didn't live through the 60s there, where you dealt with the segregation and all that. I've only studied it in history books, and yeah, there'd be people today that are walking around with that, like what you said, because it's like my grandpa, not so much, but my grandma, she would be considered a racist because she, like we didn't share because in her generation, this is where I want to be careful with this, because like in her generation, she was in that you didn't do certain things with black people. You don't do certain things because they were taught that. And so it's like, I'm like, why does it matter? Like person's skin color. I've never understood that. Like I had black baby dolls, so I'm just saying. But I mean, like me, I'm like, I couldn't understand that. But then it's like when you brought that up, I'm like, there would be that generational trauma right there that people are reacting to. It's not necessarily like the slavery, because that would be way back. That'd be too far gone generational wise. But then when you add that aspect, And then you think about like Margaret Sanger for the Planned Parenthood, like what her prerogative was. It's like, well, no wonder why there's the different issues. People are thinking about slavery. They're not thinking about like in the 60s what happened, which was horrific. That's why I'm like, I've never experienced segregation, but I never want it here. We'll just put it that way. I'm like, I've got too many people that I'm like, I'm not sorry, but I'm from Minnesota. I love different colors. Like there's a
Well,
reason why
you
we
think about what's
we
happening
need
in Minnesota right now. That's
well,
traumatic, right?
yeah.
And so you think about how that is going to impact how parents teach their children to respect authority. That could be a trauma,
Yeah.
that could be passed on, that could develop their character. When you think about COVID, that changed the world's view on even getting immunizations. Now,
Oh, it
how
certainly did.
people frame that is going to impact how they rear their children. So trauma can transcend generations. And when you think about chronic stress, and this is important for women, that stress and ongoing chronic stress does have a or can have a long-term effect on the body. There is a study, a realm of study called epigenetics. And
Yeah.
epigenetics looks at how stress impacts your DNA. Now, we know that it does not change the DNA sequence, but we do know that stress does impact DNA itself, how it responds to the environment. So when we see families, and we say, "Oh, I wonder why they all," and they'll tell, we all got sugar, we all got diabetes in our family. Everybody in my family gets rheumatism. Everybody in our family, it could potentially
Everybody's
be,
fat.
well, and it could be because the DNA that is in that family line may have been impacted by stress. We know that it can affect mental illness. We know that stress can affect utero development, the brain of that baby in the utero. It can affect the infant once it's born, by how their brain is being wired. So there are a lot of factors that impact who we are and who we become, and moms are a big part of that, of developing our kids. So and so it's important for moms to understand their own triggers and their past trauma. So to your point, I don't believe that. I think what you put in is what you get out. So if you've parented well and established the relationships, your kids are going to be there.
Well, that's a good thing though. So it's like
It's
that's
a
what you
very good
want. Like I
thing.
said, that's why I'm like I don't want to be the well, my kids, I'll be 60 by the time the oldest one can technically leave. They're the youngest can leave. But I mean, like even at that, I'm like, I don't want to be the person that nobody goes sees in the nursing home. I don't even want my kids to put me in one of them. I'm just saying. So it's like you want to be mindful of that at the same time. But at the same time, I was wondering too, like when people are glorifying like the burnout culture. I don't know if it's more hustle or burnout. I don't know what you'd label it as. It seems like it's almost burnout people put on a pedestal instead of, I don't know.
Well, people like that. We have elevated busyness.
Okay.
Now, busyness, I'm doing this. I'm in this committee. I'm over here. I'm over there. I'm doing a business. I'm taking care of my kids. I'm doing all these things. And we've elevated busyness. But busyness does not mean productivity.
Nope,
And
I've been figuring that out.
busyness does not mean you're productive. And busyness does not mean that you are really making any money either. It could be non-productive in just life, and it could be non-productive to your finances. It just means that you're busy. And when you're so busy that you never stop, you never turn off, you become burned out. The burnout piece is just you never give, you never turn off. And if you think about if you kept any electrical device plugged in indefinitely, what's going to happen to the wires?
It explode. They melt.
They're going to
wouldn't
burn
they?
up. If you don't ever unplug it, it's going to, even an iPhone, and we love our phones, right? But
Yep.
even an iPhone, if you keep it plugged up too long, will get warm. And sometimes they can explode. If we never unplug, if we keep a cake in the oven too long, it's going to burn. You keep a pot on the stove, it's going to burn. So anything that we don't unplug, it's going to get too hot, and then we're going to destroy that device. We're no different. We have to have time to turn off and reset.
So how would you say that we can start where we're not doing the burnout, where we stop glorifying the burnout. I was trying to phrase how to this tongue twister there and how
Yeah.
to start where you're going to stop the burnout.
Well, first you have to recognize that you need a change. I don't like how I feel. I don't like not being able to sleep, being so stressed that I can't sleep. I don't like the palpitations and tightness in my chest. I don't like feeling bloated all the time and constipated. I don't like the headaches and muscle tension. And then what are you going to do about it? Now, I will say that sometimes women do enjoy having their their superhuman badge on their chest. They like it. They get secondary gains from looking like they can do it all. And you have to be willing to give that up. Give up the title in order to build a life that encompasses time to relax, time to enjoy life, and really be able to live with yourself differently. So the first thing you have to do is recognize that you need to change. And then you have to be willing to do the work to change. And the first step in that work is recognizing, oh yeah, I have secondary gains here that I don't have to, I really do kind of like wearing that super mother, superwoman complex. I like that superwoman complex, but I need to let that go. That's one of the first things.
Well, I appreciate that because it's like for me, I'm thinking like I could tell that I was headed towards burnout, and it's like they're just like the different signals. It's like I haven't used like I don't do the typical American diet that the doctors think that I do, like where I'm having the coffee and the fast food and all this other stuff. It's like for me, it's like I can only handle 1 cup a day, but it's like I could tell that there was certain things that were started going on because I'm like, okay, now I moved from 1 cup to 2 cups. I've got to watch my heart because I know what I've got there going on. So it's like I was able to pick up certain things were going on for that burnout because I'm like, I don't like what you said. It's like some of those signals start to go off in the body. And like me, I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't like this. I'm spending less time with my kids. And the whole purpose was for me to spend more time with them, not less. And so it's like, that's what I was wondering, like when stay-at-home moms, like even if they are on social media, but they're still at home, they're still taking care of the kids. But it's like, what would be like the signal, like that aha, like maybe you should start thinking about what you're doing differently before you get to the point where like you see moms like they're cleaning up after their kids, they're doing everything. And me, I'm like, I don't got time for that. My kids, they already like the one is not even 2 years old yet. He already knows how to take dishes out of the dishwasher and puts them in. They're not done correctly, but hey, it's better than he's doing it, you know?
Well, we started our conversation before we started
Mm,
recording. You mentioned that you were a team. You realized that you were
yes.
the CEO of your home and you had a team of 8 or 9, plus your husband and yourself 10, right? And
Yes.
so you are a team. A team means together everyone achieves more. So one of the things moms have to do is realize that everyone in the household can contribute. So allow them to. Allow the kids to do what they can do. Train them to help each other. If you have a husband or a significant other, be honest. I need you to help me here. I know that I'm at home. I know you just came home from work, but could you consider taking a nap and then help me with the laundry when you get up? Or would you mind doing a certain load on Saturday? You have to let everyone contribute. Sometimes moms take it all on with that superwoman complex and then they're mad because it's cute in the beginning. You know, my mother said, don't do anything you don't plan to do for a lifetime.
Ooh.
Whether you're raising your kids or however you relate to your husband, she said, don't do anything that you don't plan to do forever. Because we do teach people how to treat us, even the people in our home. And we cannot be angry with our husbands, significant others, our children when they're only treating us in a manner that we told them was acceptable.
You know what? That was so good. I had to write it down. No joke. I hope our audience did too. I'm just saying, you just said don't do anything we don't plan to do for a lifetime.
Because you're always teaching people how to treat you. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't change the story, you can't change the chapter, but you have to know that you didn't create what you're living in overnight. So it
No.
takes time to train. You can learn a new skill in 90 days. And if you pull people together and tell them what you need, nobody's a mind reader. We can't say, well, they should know. Women are good about that, they should know. Well, I'd like to know how. if you didn't tell them.
Well, no, I appreciate that because, yeah, that's one of the things I've learned. I'm like, my husband can't read my mind and I can't read his. He's told me that before. And I'm like, okay, then I'll spell it out for you, like what I want done. And that's literally what I did. I'm like, I have a success list in business that I created like 7 years ago. And I use it. And if I don't use it, my whole day is, we don't want to know me. But I mean, like, I started one in the house and it's like, it worked. And then I did ones for the kids and they liked it. And that really helped. Now, in this next segment, about what are some signs that someone is emotionally or physically depleted, but just may not recognize it quite yet?
Well, I'd love to answer that because the failure to recognize that you are depleted either physically or emotionally is that you are ignoring yourself. Your body was created by God to give us signals that to alert us when we are in pain, when we are in trouble, when we need to rest. And we were created to sleep, okay? That means we're supposed to rest. We were created to do that, right? So signs of physical depletion could just be this persistent sense of exhaustion, getting sick more frequently. You find that you are getting colds and flus more often because stress and burnout deplete the immune system. You might find that you're having body aches, jaw pain, you're clenching your teeth at night when you're sleeping. You might, when you wake up, you have, sore jaw. You might have digestive issues, bloating, constipation. You might have sleep problems. You can't go to sleep or you don't stay asleep. You might have heart palpitations, constant low-grade headaches. You might feel emotionally numb. You just can't get out of bed in the morning. Nothing that you do gives you excitement or happiness. Things you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy. You might feel irritable, loss of joy. You go off and you snap very easily. You feel cynical and you're just not you feel like you're going through the motions of life. You're not connected. These are just a few signs that you could be going into an unhealthy place. And it's important for the moms to understand that how you treat your body in your 20s, 30s, 40s impacts how you're going to live and the level of health you might have later on. So it's important because there's a cumulative effect. Stress has a cumulative effect. We know that there's a greater risk of heart attacks, hypertension, cancers, inflammatory issues when people never stop, pause, release the stress, rest, and re-regulate.
So that's counterintuitive almost to like a lot of the advice out there
You
for
have to rest.
yeah, because I know like if you listen to like any of the top gurus, which I'm like, they sound like they're working all the time, and it's like you don't need time for sleep, and it's like, yeah, but won't they get your life shorter? Like,
It absolutely does. Your body was created to rest. You need time for renewal. You don't, as we spoke in the earlier session, you don't leave things plugged up all the time. Even your computer screen wants to go to sleep, correct?
true.
So we don't wear it out. It will have a sleep mode so you don't burn it out, right? So if a monitor needs to sleep and rest and renew so that it can serve us for a longer period of time, wouldn't our bodies need the same thing?
Well, yeah, they would. So what about like the women that are like, oh, they need like 4 to 6 hours of sleep? Because I've met couple of women that are like, they only need a little bit. They don't need the full 8 hours. And me, I'm like, I do better right at that 9 hours, but that has to be uninterrupted.
Well, I would tell you that they might be doing well now, but they won't. There is going to be a price you pay for that later. And sometimes we push ourselves so hard. Oh, I don't need it. Well, you don't need it because you never give yourself the time to rest. I remember I used to push myself like that. Oh, I only need 4 hours. I was doing what I had to do. But when I started, my body started breaking down and I was feeling myself looking like a very burned out person. I started resting. I changed my life. And once I became rested, I'm like, oh, this is what it feels not to be tired. You can denial is not just river in Egypt, Robin. Sometimes we tell ourselves all kinds of things to help ourselves push forward. So pushing through is different from not actually needing the time. I actually not taking the time to rest. We can push through and say, I got through it. I did it. I don't need it. That's not really true. You just pushed through. That's different from taking the time to recover.
I'm thinking about that now because I'm like, all my C-sections have been, all the kids have been eighth C-section, or I'm up to now. But I'm like, I just go back to work right away afterwards. Except this one, I took about a week break is what I did do. But I mean, like when you said like you gotta push through, I'm like, that's what I've been doing. I was like the push through part because you gotta go through it. Maybe not the work part of it so much. But it's like when you're going through that push, it's different, like when you slow down. Because that's one of the things that I decided, like for 2026, I'm like, I'm going to slow down. I'm like, what is the hurry?
Really?
And
What is the hurry?
yeah, it's like you see what got me thinking on this path was earlier in 2025 and like throughout 2025, I'm like, you see all these vehicles as an example, all these vehicles that people go so fast and they're hurrying. And it's like, are you hurrying to the grave or are you hurrying to where do you got to go? That's so important. You have to go over the speed limit. You have to think you're better than everybody else going. And I know it's probably not the right analogy, but at the same time, it's like our bodies were doing the exact same thing. Like we're pushing it harder than what it has to be. Then you just fall dead sooner.
Well, and you're pushing to what end? Are you pushing so you can have money for things? Are you pushing because you want the validation from other people? It's important to know your why. Sometimes we do have periods where we say, okay, I'm going to push myself to do a little extra overtime or do a little extra because I want to save up for this vacation, or I want to get my child a certain tutor. So that we might have brief segments in life where we need to push, but it doesn't mean that has to become a lifestyle. We have to know our why. Running to run, and the why should be something that we actually value. Why are you just running and you don't know what the end result is? You do, and at the end, you spent all this time running, spinning, and twirling around, and you look around and say, well, what did I do it for? I don't have any more money. I didn't enjoy myself. I can't benchmark, show myself what I did with my life, my time, and my resources. And you can always make more money, but you cannot create more time. Only God is in control of time.
That is very true. And everything you just said, I'm like, that's where I've been at. And I'm sure the audience has been at times too. Because it's like, am I really doing the things that matter? And it's like, how do you, like, for me, I'm so intuitive. So it's like, I know, like, I pay attention to my body, but not everybody does. So it's like, how would they know, like, on a normal, I guess the normal typical American diet or lifestyle, how would one really know that they need to slow down before they get to the point where they are so depleted in energy and resources that they're just like, what was all of this for? Because like you said, the why matters.
You have to know your why. So you have to write down, if you have 3 or more of these signs and symptoms, you're exhausted, you're sick all the time, you're cranky, you're short with people, that's enough to pause and say something needs to change. Because when we show up like this, it impacts our relationships. And your relationships should be what matters. Your relationships with your children, how you're showing up for your husband, your significant other, and what is your relationship with yourself. And I'm a Christian, a woman of faith. What is my relationship with my Heavenly Father? Because we're not going to be young forever. You have to live with yourself at some point in time. Don't wait. So if you have 3 or more of these symptoms, even one, in my opinion, it's time to pause. And as we go through life, Robin, our whys do change, right? When I was taking care of my dad, I stepped down from my position as I had shared, and so I could take care of him. My why was I need to take care of my dad. When he transitioned and life changed for me, I could pivot my career again. But my why at that point for going back to school, working was because I was really planning for when I really wanted to retire. I said, well, when I want to retire, I want my life to look like this. I want to still be able to contribute. I want to be able to make an income. I don't want to work full time, but I still want to grow and contribute. And how, so what am I doing? So I started planning really what I would look like at retirement about 10 years before I actually did. So our whys do change, as your children grow, as your relationships mature, as your needs change totally physically and emotionally, because I had to have a talk with myself at 50 that, girl, you can't do what you did at 30 and 40. You're still smart. You can still multitask, but you need to go to bed. You really need to go to bed and sleep. You cannot push yourself. You cannot do what you used to be able to do. You're not 20. You're not 30. You're 50. You need to deal with that.
I hear you on that one. I used to be a night owl. I could handle 1 a.m. But after having kids, I started having mine at 29. So it's like the last 12 years in a row pregnant. I'm like, I'm tired by 8. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't do this anymore. I'm doing my best.
Yeah, it's okay.
It
It doesn't mean you just become smarter at how you work.
Yeah.
You become smarter at your organization. You build community where you can leverage the skills of other people, right? Like I don't do laundry anymore. I found an app where you can only pay $1 a pound. I haven't done laundry in 2 years, over 2 years. You just put the order in on the app and they pick it up and they bring it back the next day, fold it and ready to go in the drawers. That's time back for me. That's, even though it's my husband and I, that's 3 hours, 4 hours back a month. I love it.
I love that too.
So,
I'm just thinking, I didn't know that there was an app for that, because I'm like,
popular
all the
national.
kids we got, how many hours that would save?
Well, I mean, even if you gave yourself a day a week where you didn't do it, because that's, you're doing a lot of laundry, but you can do some things that can free up your time. It's a trade-off, right?
Well,
so as my life has changed, I don't want to do that anymore. So I don't.
Well, no, I like that, because, like, the other thing is, I was listening as you were speaking, as I was thinking about, like, how so many women, we plan for the wedding, as an example. Like, there's so much that goes into the wedding and all of that, but it's like, I almost think it's almost like a failure to plan. When you get older, like, well, great, you've had the wedding, you're young, like, essentially, but what did you do, like, long term? Like, did you plan on that?
Did you plan your life? So I used to coordinate weddings, and I talk to you now. I mentor young women all the time, and I tell them, number one, you've got to spend as much energy in planning your life together as you do the one day, because you'll have the one day and then you'll find yourself looking at a stranger that you have no plan to how to continue going to talk about, no conversation, no plan, no goals after that day. I also tell young women, look, I want a wedding. I never had a wedding. And I'm like, if all you want is a party where you can be in a pretty dress, I'll throw you one. Really think about your life commitment, because not maintaining it is going to be much more painful and costly to you than just having a party and calling out what you really want.
True. That is true. Because I'm like, I've always wondered, like, to me, I'm the type of person that I look to people who have been, like, married, for example, like the 25 years and longer, like the 50 years.
37 going on 38.
Okay. Sorry,
Yeah. That's okay. I've been married going on 37, going on 38 years.
Okay. So with the 37 years, like, you even know yourself then how that affects, like, the longer you've been married, like what you said, you got to have the conversations. And, like, today's society, I think they're so quick to be, I'm going to be with this person, then tomorrow I'm going to be somebody else. Like, they're not in it for the long haul. That's the only reason why I'm like, I look to people who have been married for like 25 plus, the 50 plus, because I'm like, you guys know more. You can show me more, tell me more, help me more, guide me more. That's the way I look at it. That's what the beauty of the podcast. Like, that was a sole purpose of, like, have something to help people that may not have those tools.
Well, I tell women and young men when they talk about wanting to be married that you have to go in it and stay because you wanna. Because there are things in life that any day of the week I could say I don't want to do this anymore, right? But I made a commitment, right? And the reality is, I'm not Miss Wonderful every single day. I can't say
Yeah.
everything is my husband. He's my friend. And I'm very fortunate. My husband is my friend, and he has loved me every day of my life, and I am very fortunate, but we work at it, right? You have to be forgiving, number one. You have to you have to put in the time and do things together. So I try very hard, even when I was working full time. I tried not to do things on Fridays because that would be the time I spend with him, or Sundays. So no matter what else I was doing, he knew he had 2 days where I was really dedicated to him. And people became aware of that. But you also have to allow yourselves to grow. I'm not the person he married by far. I don't look anything like I did 37 years ago in terms of my life, my character. My character is the same, but my career, he's had changes too. But you're in it because you gotta I wanna be married. I love my husband. I like being with him. We hang out. We aren't doing something special all the time. Most of the time we're sitting talking about stuff, or what we're going to watch, what we're going to eat, but we just enjoy hanging out. Because life is, you do want to build memories with your significant other, but you plan it. You have to talk about, what are we going to look like? When we got married when we were around 30 and 35, but we kind of talked about, well, what do we want to look like? And my husband is very kind, and he always gave me room to grow and pivot and try new things. And I gave him that as well. But mostly, you got to forgive, you got to laugh. Our faith has kept us, and you got to want to, because anything in life will tell you you can come out. Everything, right? All the TV shows, Women of Nebraska, Women in Atlanta, Housewives of Atlanta, Housewives of New York, and all the junk will tell you that you don't have to, and that there's something better. But I don't want to ever think any person is a throwaway. I'm not a throwaway. My husband's not a throwaway. I made a commitment. And sometimes we have to honor our word.
I love everything you just said, because it's like it is one of those like in the relationship. I might think about like my husband and I, like we both like to cook. I haven't done it as much, and it's kind of funny because it's like the kids, they even notice. Like for example, I made mashed potatoes the other day. Well, I was peeling some of the potatoes, or little tiny things, and I'm like, I can't peel these little tiny potatoes. So I'm just like, I just threw them all in the pot, and I told the kids, I says, you eat them the way God made them. He was upset. He's like, well, Daddy doesn't do this. And I'm like, I says, you know what? Then have Daddy cook it next time. Because I says, I want you to eat it the way God made that potato. So that's what I did. He didn't eat the potato. But still, my husband said, well, the kids didn't want to eat it. And I says, well, I should have told you what I told them. Because I'm thinking, like, for me, I'm like, I got to keep God first. And that's like, and like what you said, like you shared too, is that you have our faith. That the faith is what I think holds the marriage together stronger. Because I've really found that Bible verse to be true, that what God puts together, no man can separate. Like it's impossible to separate it.
Well,
It
he
really
doesn't
is.
overcome your will. God never
Yeah.
overrides our will. So if it's our will to, well, I just want to do it, he can't override that. My
Yeah.
conviction was this, we have been active in our church for many years. And how can I tell people how good God is and how he can help them, but he couldn't keep my marriage together? I didn't have enough submission to the word or the Holy Spirit in my life to allow him to heal our relationship, or the I have to go. I mean, how does that work? And I felt like your word, your life teaches more than your words. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite, during hard patches, but I also know that hard patches don't last forever. They only last forever if you don't forgive, right? So we've had hard patches. We've had hard financial times. We've had, you have hard, you going through growth spurts, maturity spurts, life spurts, disappointment spurts. But you have to forgive and move on. And the best way to forget the past is to begin a new present. So sometimes couples have to have a reset. Well, we're resetting right now. We need to reset.
Well, I like how you put it like as a reset too, because that gives the like more strength, and it changes the perspective too on how to handle it. Like, okay, we just got to go through the reset. We've got to figure out how we're going to do things differently than what we have done it. And then, at the same time, it's like when a person hits burnout, have you ever found like burnout, maybe like that's what's happening in marriages too? Like not just to us, like to us women, but what about like the marriages?
Well, marriages, I believe, in my observation, suffer the most when people just stop talking. So if I'm burned out and then I shut you out, we can't help each other. You have to, burnout can affect how you communicate and it affects how you show up, as with anything. But we have to care about how we show up in our marriages. People, it's always been interesting to me that people, if their job tells them you need A, you go out and get A tomorrow. Even if you don't have any money, you will borrow, you will steal, you will do whatever you have to do to keep that job. You will fight to keep your paycheck, but you won't fight to keep your marriage. And you ask hundreds of people, how do I keep my job? What do I have to do? But you won't have that same tenacity for your marriage. And if you can stay at your job 5, 10, 15 years or whatever is required, why can't you put that? Why do you give people on the outside more than you give the person that you're committed to, that you made a covenant with? Why does your husband get or wife get less? But you have to. So I think the real breakdown is in communication and lack of forgiveness. And this whole idea, television has this whole fantasy life, with the housewives or this and that and the other, that your husband or your wife owes you happiness. No, they don't. No, they don't. They know when the Bible says, "Oh, no man, nothing but love." So we have to depend on God and our relationship with him. Your husband does not owe you happiness. So you can't look at the man and point your finger. You're not doing for me what Sally's husband do for her. And you aren't doing what Mike did. No man wants to be compared to another man. That is the first thing you would do to break your marriage and break your relationship, is to compare a man with another man. They need to know that they're loved unconditionally. And you don't, women, this is off the cuff and off, not what we were talking about. But women, you cannot be out here complaining to your husband or your significant other to other women. So you do not need to disparage your significant other, because your words have power and you're creating the world that you don't want by your words. The power of life and death is in the tongue. Speak well. Any problem I have with my husband, I'm going to talk to him about it. I'm not blah, 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 blah with the girls in the bar, the girls at the grocery store, or the girls at church. Keep your private life your private life. Talk to your husband. Honor him at least with that.
I definitely agree with you. I really, really do. And I'm glad that I asked that I asked this question. Because like I said, I respect people that have been married longer than I have for this reason. Because you gave so much gold right now that I'm like, that is huge. Because it's like, I want to be the woman. I would love for my husband and I to be married, 75 years. I don't know age wise, I haven't figured that part out yet. But still, it's like, that's what I would like to have. And it's like, you don't get that unless you're willing to do the work, unless you're willing to make that effort. And then you said about like communication. I'm almost thinking like that's the same thing with our body though too. We get out of alignment, out of that communication with it when we're not
Yes.
listening to it. We're headed for burnout. Then like what you brought up, a very good important point I wanted to mention was, then we're not talking to our spouse. And you had said like throughout the conversation, prior and then now, about how that breakdown of communication. I almost wonder if that's like really where it starts.
Well, it does, because if you're in a relationship, the two become one, you have to talk to each other. You cannot live in isolation. My husband can't know what is on my heart if I don't share my heart, right? So I think we've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that we can listen. But if you don't put in the time and sit down together to listen, you won't. If you keep saying, "Oh, tomorrow we'll do it," or "Tomorrow we'll do it," or "Tomorrow," and you won't. And you can't make all of your conversation about the house. What are we going to do for bills? How are we going to pay groceries? What are we doing for the kids? Some time has to be dedicated just to you. Who are you as a couple? Who are you as a family, as the parents, as the CEOs of your family unit? And when you lose the identity of who you are as a family, then that also is a reason that you break down.
I was gonna say I do agree with you on that for like all of the reasons why a person like in that relationship does break down because they're putting it off. And like I've noticed like it's almost like a lot of people have this fear of commitment, not just to themselves, but it's
Hmm.
also to the relationship, to what they're doing. But then like you said, they can do it for a job.
They can do
That
it for a job.
I've never stopped and thought about it that way.
They do it for a job, but they can't weather the storm. And marriages do have storms. They have, sometimes there's bad weather, right? Right now here it's, minus 15 degrees or something, but it's not going to be that way. You're in Minnesota. It's not that way forever. So you have to be willing to go the distance. Life is life. We cannot, and it brings what it brings sometimes by our choices, and sometimes not because of our choices. But remember what you loved about your husband or your wife before you married them. Did they really just change? What did you love before? How can you amplify that? How have you changed? I mean, like I said, I'm not wonderful each and every day, and I don't have to be right. And I think that's if I was going to end on anything on a comment, it would be around relationships. You have to give up the right to be right. You don't have to be right. Sometimes you can submit and just say, okay, I'm gonna let this one go.
I've learned that one because I've told my husband that he's right quite a few times. And I don't have a problem with it because I'm like, well, if you're right, you're right. Like give credit due where credit is due
Yeah,
or where it's owed.
everything's not until death, right? It does. We don't have to
Well, no.
die to the death of our relationships, right? So burnout does have an impact on relationships. It can burn that out too. But it's important that we communicate. God created us to live in community. That's why there's a man, there's a woman, there's a family, because there's community. We're not supposed to live in isolation. That means to live in community. God created us to be in community. He sent his son Jesus for us to be able to commune with the Holy God, right? Jesus covers us. He allows us to have a relationship with the Father. So if the Father, the Creator, wants us to have a relationship with him through Jesus, why would we think we're going to live in isolation in our marriages? Marriages and relationships are a represent our relationship with the Father. You're not sitting down talking, you're talking to somebody. You're talking to God, you're talking to a spouse. We're not talking to ourselves. That would be a little odd.
Well, no, I'm like, I'm about all that. I'm like, yeah, you still got the relationships either way because it's like the husband is, well, there's God and then there's the husband and then there's the wife and like the children. But it's like you said, like you're always in that relationship. But then the husband is supposed to be the closest to Christ himself for like in how the relationship works. But it also makes sense though too because like our energy for us women is that we're always expanding. Like we have the energy like to create. We all do. Like I said, the power of life and death is in the tongue. That's my favorite Bible verse, by the way. I'm just saying, but it's like we speak all the time into existence what we don't want or what we do want, but then it's using how to use that. So in like the tools that you've gave throughout the entire episode here, I'm just wondering like what's the one tool that you would say like with your method for the stop it method? Because I want to hear about the stop it method. And has that been a huge tool for these women that you have helped break free from that burnout?
Yes, they have to. So stop it. The framework is this: S, to stop and scan. What is happening to my body? Am I having headaches, colds, muscle tension? And then you have to be willing to tell yourself the truth. T, I feel like crap. I'm cranky. My relationships are off kilter. I need to make a change. And then O, you have to own your no and own your yes and make the changes that you are willing to make, that you need to make to become healthy. And then P, you have to prioritize yourself. Prioritize your health, your family, your significant relationships. And then I, you have to be intentional. A goal without a plan is just a wish. And wishful thinking doesn't change anything. And then T, you finally have to be willing to transform. You have to be willing to lay down your superwoman complex. And in that, to transform, really, as believers in Christ, we need the word of God and prayer. Because The word of God is sharper than any two-edged sword. And if we read it and meditate on it day and night, Holy Spirit will tell us will tell us what to let go, what to prioritize, what is the truth according to his word, what to prioritize, and what to do. Because as we humble ourselves, to really stop being ourselves, stop taking control of our lives, and to surrender to the Lord.
I love that very much because I'm just like thinking about everything throughout the entire time here. And it's just not almost, I just wish that more people would realize like all of the strength in anything we do has to come from God first. And he's in those of us who obviously believe in him and follow his path and know. And then like you said too, it's one of those is just like if you keep on that same path, like when you get married, when you're headed for that burnout, I almost like that was one of the major things for me right away that I knew that I was headed for burnout was I'm like, okay, I'm not spending my time with God. I'm not sorry, but nobody, not even my kids. They know if I don't have my time with God, I'm not a nice person. And I've said that more than my fair share for a reason because I'm like, I'm serious. If I don't get my time, I'm like, forget it. My entire day is shot. Like I've done it accidentally, even forget. Like in the morning, and then it's like, yeah, well, my day went down the toilet for a reason, and I think that's part of the burnout too, almost.
Well, he
Like
tells
as
us
a
in
sign.
him we live and move and have our being, right? So we're going to
Yeah.
either rely upon him or we're going to do it ourselves. And that's really where the burnout comes. So as I believe that as believers in Christ, we should not take on the problems of the world. So believers in Christ, people who are depending on Jesus, living for him, we shouldn't be living in burnout because we've died to ourselves and we're allowing him to order our steps because he says, my sheep hear my voice and another they will not follow. So if we're totally dependent on him, we're not going to burn out. If we're moving by his spirit and his word, we're not going to live in burnout. So I had to, honestly check myself and get back into a dependent, becoming a child of God, submitted, allowing him to be my father and walking in his way. And then he ordered my steps and I wasn't burnt out. That was part of it, just knowing I needed to depend on him.
How did you do that, if you don't mind me asking? Because I'm right in that phrase. Like, yeah.
Well, you die daily. The Bible tells us to die daily, right? And to humble ourselves. He wants a clean hands and a clean heart. My favorite, I'm gonna grab this. My favorite right now, my anchor scripture is Psalm 24. And it is my favorite verse right now is in Psalm 24, and because I've been focusing on a clean heart, and because if we have a clean heart, we get closer to God. And so really I had to decide that my heart, my desire for him was greater than anything else. And so Psalm 24 verse 3 says, who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. They will receive blessings from the Lord and vindication from God their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, O God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, you gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is the King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. And so we have to, in order to get closer to God, we have to trust in him. And the way to trust in him is to die to myself by faith. And so it's a cooperative relationship. As I die and draw closer to him, God moves closer. He helps us. We can't do it on our own. And I have to want him more than I want my own success. I mean, that's really what it comes to, because I have to want him. And God sees things differently than we do. God doesn't necessarily see my success by title or income like the world does. He values success differently. So though I may have a desire for some things, I want him more. Basically, I want him more.
It's that fulfillment. Because as you were reading that verse, I'm like, that's where the fulfillment comes from. Because like what brings me the most joy out of life in general is my children. I'm like, that's my fulfillment. It isn't the awards that I've gotten. It isn't all the stuff that I've done. my husband thought it is, and because he's like, I haven't done anything. I'm like, fulfillment comes from the kids. It comes from the marriage. I'm like, where do you think it comes from? And
Well,
it's
let me
like
ask you this.
closer. Yeah.
You've heard of Billy Graham, right?
Yes, I have. I would call
Okay.
this Billy Graham prayer line too.
Yeah. So Billy Graham was saved in a little southern church by Sunday school teachers, I was told. He did the Sunday school teacher, was she a big evangelist? I don't believe so. She was a little Sunday school teacher. But Billy Graham became a worldwide international evangelist. Do you think God looked on that humble Sunday school teacher or his parents any differently than Billy Graham? So I say that to you. You're raising up children. God knows the Bible says that you should I'm saying it wrong. Train up your children, right? In the
Train up a
way
child the way they shall go, and when
should
they get
go,
older,
and they
they
will
will
not
not depart
depart
from
from
it.
it, right? And so
Yeah.
you're doing that. God knows who they are. So what if you're raising up Billy Grahams? What if you're raising up kids who are going to find the cure for cancer? What if you're raising up a child who's going to do be a Sunday school teacher and lead people to Christ? You're training them up. So your work is to hear God about these kids and to raise them up. You and your husband are going to get the credit from the father because he sees things differently than we do. He doesn't measure success by the things of man. He measures success by, if the word success is used in kingdom, it's about how close to him did we become, how much of his glory do we carry, how much of his presence do we radiate so that we can bring others to him. That's really what it's about, because at the end of the day, my PhD, the titles I have, I'm not going to bring before the king, the father. Then he's not going to care.
No, he won't. I'm just thinking he already laid out what he does care about. Like every careless thought, every careless word that we spoke, I've read some of it, and I'm like, okay, I got some work to do. So with that being said, I know we all got work to do on ourselves. I think this episode is by far my favorite. I'm just saying. I mean, you got an excellent, wonderful singing voice that God blessed you with. I'm just saying, I'm gonna have a little part of that and just play it every day. I got some excellent notes that I'm just like, I had to stop and take. I'm just saying, on the don't do anything we don't plan to do for a lifetime, and then Psalm 24. I'm so incredibly thankful to have you on as a guest, and that you decided to join, to be here. And just so our audience, so they can get in contact with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Dr. Melanie, Melanie Gray, Gray, theconfidencecoach.com. Dr. Melanie Gray, theconfidencecoach.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Melanie. And I appreciate our audience here as well.
Well, thank you for having me, Robin. It's quite the honor, and I hope that the listeners were blessed by our dialogue today. And thank you again.
As always, I just want to thank you for your time and energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Healing for the Soul podcast wherever you get your downloads, you're listening to your podcasts, and keep coming back for more episodes. Thank you, everyone, for your time and your energy while listening to today's episode of Healing for the Soul podcast, which also can be found on YouTube.